It is that time of the week again when we review all of the ways in which the media covers themselves in glory. Joining us now to do exactly that is great friend of the show, Katie Halper, host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast. Great to see you, Katie.
Good to see you, Katie.
You too.
All right, this was a great moment that Krystal found from Fox and Friends. Former Republican Congressman Sean Duffy of Wisconsin appearing on the network to basically comes out against stimulus checks, possibly for the dumbest reason ever. Let's take a listen.
And by the way, if these closures continue, Brian, and the government gives these workers a check for a little while, they're going to have checks for the rest of their life because there won't be any bars and restaurants to go back to work, and they're all going to be closed. We're all going to be forced, or these workers are all going to be forced to be on, the government dole forever because they're crushing these small businesses that won't come back.
Maybe that's the goal.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe it is. That's what they're doing in China. They're consolidating power even more. Whatever little bit of free market was left over this pandemic, Chairman Xi has consolidated and made it less so because the middle class has always been the most unruly, feisty group.
I have no words for this brilliance. First of all, that's not true. China is actually, and that's not what they're doing in China, to be clear, in terms of paying people or whatever. But second, first, God forbid the idea that people get used to the idea that government can actually do for anything. That would be the worst possible thing on earth. But second, by actually not doing more stimulus, you're actually ensuring more small business closure, you idiot.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I almost feel like it's unfair to respond to it because I don't think he's fully, I don't know. I don't want to say anything ableist. I just feel like we need to, his mind isn't working. Let's just say that. I feel like it's hard to respond to this because I think he has the intellect of a child. But I would just say also, what's the middle class being feisty? What can someone explain to me what?
That part was lost on me. I didn't even know what they were trying to say on that one.
Yeah.
So, and also we should give the context for this, right? So this is Sean Duffy and Rachel Campo Duffy. They needed to stay where they started, which was on The Real World, right? That reality TV show. That's the appropriate lane for them.
But this is that lane. Fox and Friends, Fox News.
Right.
This is the perfect lane. What are you talking about?
You're right. This is
I'll
the Real World
defend them on
2.0.
that one, Katie.
Yeah, you're right. The Real World 2.0. But I like the way that they kind of are like helping each other with their talking points. I like the way he almost probably the best part of this clip, and that's a hard thing to decide because it is so glorious. But I like when he's like, we're all going to be. I mean, they're going to be forced. He for a second, it was too overt his pretending that he lived like normal people, or was going to be at all affected by this stuff because of course the guy makes, I don't know how much, but I'm sure he makes a lot of money on Fox. And just a flashback, back in 2011, this guy complained that his salary as a member of Congress was only $174,000, and he was just struggling to get by, And he said that out loud, and the video was leaked, but it's incredible. He said that out loud. He didn't think that was a bad thing to say, just optics-wise. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. As you pointed out, if you care about small businesses, you don't actually want the government. I mean, it's just like, isn't this Keynesian economics? I guess, yes, but that guy's clearly not a Keynesian.
Yeah, they don't believe in that.
Yeah, that's the thing. But this is the thing, Katie, is like, this is very emblematic of how a lot of people here think, especially on the Republican side. But there are plenty on the Democratic side. We covered here on this show about how Manchin is out there fighting with Bernie Sanders about the idea of people getting a stimulus check and also being able to benefit from unemployment. Right. So you have this thought of like, there's this underlying assumption that people are just lazy and all they want is a government handout. And in fact, that's just not the case. The reason people are working is because they can't get a job, because there's a pandemic. And this town completely failed in managing the disease, completely failed in managing the stimulus. And now with this ridiculously, absurdly inadequate amount of money, even that they can't handle because then they're going to be on the dole forever. And maybe that's actually the grand plan is for them to have never go back to work and just be on the government dole forever.
Well, also, I mean, look, this guy is like clearly not a rational thinker, but or he's a sociopath or a sadist, but like, you don't want people going out right now, right? There's a pandemic, but he probably thinks it's a hoax anyway. He probably thinks COVID is a hoax. Mm-hmm. But if you actually didn't think that, you would actually want people to have some kind of financial support so that they're not like breaking the various orders. And the other thing about this is that it is pathetic that this has any bipartisan support, which it does. You mentioned Manchin, and he was asked the other day what would be in the stimulus, and he said he didn't even know. So it's just such a great example of how incredibly out of touch these people are. And also, I love the idea that they don't need money now because in the future they're not going to have an expensive bar tab because everything's going to be closed, so they're not going to be spending their money in bars. Like, does he think, right? Doesn't he say that they're not going to bars and restaurants? Like,
just a lot of layers of contempt.
A lot of layers of contempt, and also it's just so I guess this is their lane on Fox, right? But it's like it's not even couched or hidden at all. But again, what he thinks that people have a rainy day fund or they have a bars and restaurant fund, and they haven't been using it. But that's probably been depleted by the whole not having a job thing.
Katie, I also wanted to follow up with you on the story we covered last week about Stephanie Ruhle, who did her whole hatchet job on Bernie. She thought she had a real gotcha. Because Bernie and Holly, of course, were pushing for these stimulus checks. And she wanted to make the point of well, you don't get anything done ever. So why should we think you're going to get anything done this time? And had this incredibly disingenuous graphic made up and everything. Interesting. He actually moved the needle on this. And it looks like people are going to end up getting some stimulus check, not everything that he asked for, but better than what it was before.
Well, maybe Stephanie Ruhle, who asked him if he needed to try another tactic, a different lane, if it wasn't working, maybe she needs to try a different lane, different tactic. And so I guess that gotcha didn't work.
Something called actual journalism. Let's try that one.
She did. I do want to give her a shout out. She seemed to acknowledge him this week. I don't know if you saw that.
She did. I saw that too.
She did, right?
Yeah.
You know why? She probably was watching Rising. Called her in.
We won't go that far. Won't go that far.
Yeah. But no, maybe I think honestly, what Hillary Clinton in a non-public, I guess in a transcript, we know this from WikiLeaks or whatever. Remember, she made that point that was honest, which is sometimes we are so out of touch that we don't know how the rest of the people live. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I remember that. Yeah.
And that's true. All of these people are out of touch. I mean, and that's a systemic problem, but honestly, it's on them to kind of try to figure out how the rest of the world lives if they want to be journalists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's well said. Katie,
right,
happy
Katie.
holidays.
Thank
Always
you.
great to see you.
Thanks, you too. You too. Bye.
We'll have more Rising for you later today.